Hi, I'm Brad Wetzler. I'm a writer, editor, and writing coach, and this is Writing with Heart. We've talked about the different arcs of a narrative, of a story. And we've talked about the external arc, we've talked about the internal arc. And today I want to spend some time talking about the third arc, which is kind of a tricky one, and it's sometimes called the intentional arc. And I don't really like that term. It's kind of vague and heady for me. So I call it the what I want arc. And it's an important. It's as important as the other arcs because it really orients the reader. When you do this well, the intentional arc well, it orients the reader, towards what you want them to get from this book. It's really what the book's really about. So the first step in the intentional arc, and by the way, the intentional arc doesn't always appear as you begin writing a book in the early chapters. It kind of materializes organically, say 3 or 4 chapters in, often, sometimes not till the second draft. So that's why it's a tricky arc. But once you kind of start to understand, the idea behind the book, what you want the reader to get and what the book's really about for you, the feeling you want to give the reader, then there starts to be some real power in your writing. So the intentional arc, the what you want arc, is again, it's sort of what the book is about. And so, for example, you can talk about, the book's about love, self-love, faith, self-acceptance. I've been working with a client lately that her book's about coming home to the heart, to coming home to a sense of self and being at home in oneself as well as in one's environment. So for her, the intentional arc is connected to coming home. And so, the whole book then it really becomes about the journey from not being home in oneself to being home in oneself at the end. And likewise, each chapter is kind of a mini version of that arc, has its own arc. At the beginning of each chapter, you're disconnected from yourself in various ways, from your heart. And by the end of the chapter, we find out if you get what you wanted in that chapter. Whether you found more connection to the heart or whether you didn't, and it's okay. Some chapters you do end up finding more sense of home in the heart, and then some chapters maybe you don't. You fail. You what you experience in that chapter leads you further away. Only then the next chapter to try to come back closer to the heart. And of course, in some chapters, there might be some neutrality to it. You might get some things you want, and some things you don't. There's kind of a no valence to it. So, so again, this intentional arc, this what you want arc, it sort of could also be talked about as the slant with which you write. And as you begin to kind of get connected with the intentional arc, this arc, the story begins to tell you, what belongs in the story and what doesn't belong in the story. The story begins to tell you what it wants. Another way to think about it, at the beginning of a book, let's just stay connected with this idea of being at home in the heart as our theme. At the beginning of the book, I like to think you're kind of 10% at home in the heart, 10% awake to that idea, and 90% asleep. And as the book progresses, you slowly become more connected to the heart. By midway in the book or so, say you're 50% in the heart. You've learned a lot. You've come closer to yourself, but you're still 50% disconnected from home in the heart. But as well as though you're 50% there, you maybe are hungrier. You're thirstier for a more deeper sense of being at home because now you've tasted it. So the last half of the book is sort of an intensification of this journey towards the heart, and you now want more and more and more of it. By the end, you're 90% in the heart and you're 10% still out because we are human and we aren't perfect and we never fully become get the things we want because this is a universal world where things still remain. There's still hardness. There's still a sense of disconnection that still every day we must face and confront. So and another way to think about it, Carl Jung talked about had this quote sort of that that which remains we remain unconscious of, or remains in our shadow, is destined to become our fate, to live to we experience it as our fate. So the things at which we are not conscious of, or the things that we're not that aware of, are going to drive us into the future. And so in some ways, as the story of a book and this intentional arc is connected to this idea, because like I said, we may be 10% aware that we want to be in our heart more, but man, there's 90% of us that sort of like doesn't really know what that means, and is driving us to try to want more of that space, of that heart space, of that being at home. And so the book itself is kind of an excavation of the unconscious that drives us, and we want to bring more and more awareness into our life and into our consciousness as the book goes on. By the end, we understand ourselves so much better, and we have kind of brought more of this desire to be in our heart and our home in oneself into reality in our consciousness in ourselves. And so in that way, the book is a journey, home really is. So that's the intentional arc, the why I'm writing this book arc. And I hope that helps you, and look for more videos coming up on writing with heart. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks.